this Friday, today, the 29th day of October, 2021. My name is Manny Essien, and we love to have you tuning in from wherever you are around the world. You are welcome to our show. The Top Farmer Speaks is the only link, if I may use this language. The Top Farmer Speaks is the only link between all the agricultural stakeholders in the economy, in Nigeria, in the industry. And the show aims to highlight the vast opportunities in agriculture and to focus mainly, and to break down government policies and uncover funding and investment prospects, and even to unearth the latest research and technological advancements, the market and export openings, and bring, information for growth and sustenance closer to the farmers. So you're very welcome. Thank you for tuning into the Top Farmer Speaks. And this is a very interactive platform. We have a lovely guest today who we'll be talking to intimately. And I must say, for the very first time, it is my pleasure to welcome this lovely individual who is, for the very first time, we have a lady on the platform. Oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. And it's so exciting for me to introduce you to this lovely individual. But just before I introduce you to our guest today, I would love you to please watch this video clip, which we're about to play for you, which will give you more insight into what the Top Farmer is all about. So please bear with me and let's watch the video before I introduce you to our superstar for today's show.
The fishery and aquaculture industry are an important part of Nigeria's economy, but remains largely untapped. It is estimated that the annual fish consumption in the country is about 3.2 million metric tons, with about 66%, 2.1 million metric tons of that need being filled by fish importation, amounting to about 1.2 billion US dollars. However, with moves by the federal government to diversify the economy in the last decade, Nigeria's agriculture subsector is growing and is second only to Egypt on the African continent. But with its growing population, there continues to be a deficit which needs to be filled.
The Top Farmer.
All righty, so there you have it. A lot has to be done when it comes to agriculture in this part of our world. So once again, you're welcome. My name is Manny Essien, and with your permission, please don't adjust your screen. Now, so I do cover everywhere. But don't worry, I will do all I can to be as small as possible. Today, I will not be as big as, So here we go. Our guest today is, for the very first time, it's a lady, and she is trained. Well, I like that word trained because it tells you a lot about the person that we are focusing on today. She's trained in fishery. She is a trained fisheries expert or specialist from the University of Benin, Nigeria. She has a master's trainer. She's a master trainer in enterprise curriculum and agricultural best management practices with PIND USAID, with over 18 years experience in aquaculture. Wow, that is very big. She's a member of the Ondo State Commodity Association, OSACA, and executive in Aquaculture Fish Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. I didn't even know that this bodies exist, but now we know that. That's for Ondo State chapter. She's also an associate with Nigeria Institute of Management, NIM, and she is a serial entrepreneur, director, First Sky Path International Limited, also network marketing professional with Long Reach Bioscience International. She is the wife of an amazing man and a mother of lovely children, all together in one body. That's a lot. And her goal is to help millions of people across the globe live above poverty and achieve their dreams. Please allow me to introduce you to our guest for today, the specialist, the fishery specialist, Benedicta Peter Ogilkey. Hope I got that right. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Manning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, once again, we apologize. It's usually not my way to be late at all. But when I heard that we have a very senior babe involved today, I had to go and have a haircut so that you will not say that I am looking ugly, you know, so that you will not go and say, this man is he's an old man, you know, so I had to, you know, I apologize for the late start, but love to have you. Thank you for joining us here on The Top Farmer. How's your day going?
Going great.
Great.
Going great.
I don't know, please, is it true that you achieved all these things in 18 years? The titles that you have. And you look like you're 25.
That's the deception.
No, it's not possible. I don't believe it. And you have all these accolades in 18 years? No. Well, they say what a man can do, a woman can, you know, surpass it. So you're welcome to the platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Manny.
So we're going to go straight into it. For today's radio show, it's an hour and 30 minutes long. So we have a lot of people who have questions for you. And we also have questions curated for you for today's show. A lot of people want to go into fishery, but they may not know exactly what to do, how to go about it. And for today's show particularly, our theme for today, it's a very different type of theme. It's not the usual, everyday theme. For today, our theme is very, very different, and it's totally on fishery. Can I ask you, please, all these your accolades, is it in Nigeria here or abroad? All of them is
in Nigeria here. They're in Nigeria here. PIND is PIN. It stands for PIN. It's Partnership Initiative of the Niger Delta. Is a foundation that is into promoting of agriculture, and they have other capacity building program they are into. Then USAID, they have their offices here, and I'm trained with them. So everything's all in Nigeria here.
Wow. Well, thank you for enlightening me. I did not know. And anybody else, please. Now here she gets all this award. All right. Please remember that you can also ask a question by indicating with your hand, by waving, or by sending a message here to the Top Farmer. Inbox your messages, your questions. And this is a free session. So you have a chance to speak to Benedicta firsthand, who is a trained fishery expert. So please get your questions ready before you go and enter catfish business and you crash. You will not blame me, you will not blame her. You blame yourself. Okay, let's go straight into the questions we have for you today. First of all, how do we determine high-yielding fingerlings or juveniles? How do we determine high-yielding fingerlings or juveniles at the point of purchase? How do we determine that? But before that, maybe perhaps you can, maybe you could just do maybe you could just tell us, you know, about today's presentation.
All right, thank you. So I will be sharing my screen. So first of all, the theme for today is aquaculture in Nigeria, practical understanding of fish production and sustainable management technique. That word sustainable is very important because many people go into fish farming or any business, and at the end of the day, they are not able to sustain production. So for fish farming to be sustainable, one will have to Now we have to have management practices that are effective. There's what we call best management practices in agriculture generally. So for aquaculture, there is aquaculture best management practice. So with that, you'll be able to effectively go into aquaculture or any agricultural practice, following those different techniques. And for fisheries, we'll be discussing some of those management practices today. And that will enable us to know what we need to do to have quality production and yields that will be sustainable. So sorry, I'm trying to. So for aquaculture, well, for me, I heard about fisheries for the first time sometime in 1993 when I was browsing through my JAM brochure. I've already made up my mind before that I was going to read optometry as my first choice, then pharmacy as my second choice. But going through the brochure, I saw a course, fisheries, and I was wondering, is this a course? And my brother then, my older brother that was my guide, said, you dare not put in anything like that fisheries because you don't even know what it entails and all that. So with that, sorry, no, not this. So with that, the argument got to my dad, and my dad said, she's the one going to read the fisheries. Let her put in for anything she wants to put in. And that was how I filled in for fisheries for my second choice. So when the results came out, I went to University of Benin to check the list, and I discovered that my name was not in optometry first list. So I decided to go, since I was already in Uniben, let me just walk around and go to Faculty of Agric, Department of Fisheries to see what it entails and just look at the environment. Getting there, I met Professor Oguze, which was then a doctor, and he told me so much about fisheries, and I was excited about what he told me. So I decided to just stay back, and he brought out the list, and I saw that my name was on the list. So I decided to fill in the form and started my registration for fisheries. That was how I came into fisheries and aquaculture. So talking about aquaculture in Nigeria, aquaculture is predominantly practiced by smallholder fish farmers, and their little contributions is what comes together to what we have. And from the documentary we already saw, there is a deficit in the aquaculture value in aquaculture production, talking about fisheries now. Most of those demand is being supplied by importation. So there's lots of openings, lots of opportunities for us to go into fisheries and make sustainable income out of it. So talking about aquaculture is for individuals that are seeking to increase their source of livelihood, then increase their protein yields for their families. To have increased yields, you have to carry out effective management practices. And with those management practices, we'll be able to have yields that are sustainable, and we're good to go as business people. So fish pond is an enclosure, which can be a tarpaulin pond, it can be plastic ponds, it can be earthen, it can be concrete. Can be concrete ponds. So for us to practice fisheries, so that enclosure must be there. We must have the facility we want to use. Then, especially for those that want to go into fisheries in earthy tanks and cockroach tanks. First of all, the most important factor is site selection, because you can't just start fish farm business without doing a proper site selection to know whether the soil is okay for aquaculture practice or not. So for earthy ponds, we have to determine the soil texture first. We have to do what we call surveying and mapping out. We check the soil texture, because the texture, soil type and soil texture is what determines the quality and the quantity of water that you can have in such water body. Sorry, still trying to, my screen is not sharing. Just give me a minute, please. So that's what will determine what the yield will be like. So first of all, talking about how do you know quality fingerlings and viable fingerlings? From men looking at fingerling, by men looking at the fingerling, you cannot easily tell, except for the length. Yes, to know a healthy one, you can tell, but to know one that is viable, that is of high yield, quality yield, you can't tell by the looks. But to check for a healthy fingerlings or juvenile, you can just check the gills, the size, the body shape, the texture of the body. Is the gills bright red or is it pale? So those are the eyes something, are the eyes okay? So those are the physical things you can use in telling whether the fingerling is viable or not. So that's that for checking. But as per the productivity and the yield capacity of the fingerlings of juvenile, you cannot tell from men observation. So that's why you have to get fingerlings and juvenile from a reputable source. From a reputable source, because there are many people that are into fingerlings and juvenile production that just pick any fish from anywhere. They can just pick a table-sized fish and use it for production, and it will hatch up. By the time it's 6 weeks thereabout, they start selling it off as fingerlings and maybe 10, 12 weeks as a juvenile. And there are some juveniles that people will tell you this one is just a juvenile that is 8 weeks old or 12 weeks old, unknown to you that the juvenile is already 16 weeks or 18 weeks old. But you can never tell the viability of any fingerling or juvenile by mere observation. So the first thing to note is that you locate a reputable fingerling or juvenile hatchery that use quality brood stocks. Because in having quality fingerlings and juvenile, you need quality brood stocks to be able to achieve that. So that's the first thing. You have to look for a reputable hatchery. Talk with those that are already into the business. If you are a new, an intending farmer or a new farmer, talk with people that are already into business. Because the truth is that facts don't hide. For people can say, oh, this is Dutch, this is that. But when you ask people around there, they will be able to tell you, don't mind that person. His fingerlings don't grow well. The juveniles don't grow well. So you must make sure you locate a reputable hatchery to be able to get fingerlings or juveniles that are viable. So Manny, should I continue or you have another question so that you are muted. You are muted.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I mean, we are here to learn, so let's carry on. I would like you to just give me a second or two. Everybody who is tuning in at this time, Friday, in case you're tuning in for the very first time, just so you know, this is the Top Farmer Speaks, and it is a platform that allows us to integrate with experts in the agricultural sector and you, the farmers, to learn more. And for today, we are focusing on fishery, and our theme is aquaculture in Nigeria, practical understanding of fish production and sustainable management techniques. And our dear speaker here is Mrs. Benedicta Peter Okeoke. She is a member of the Association of Nigeria on the state chapter, and she has just given us an amazing presentation. So we are going to have a part two as she begins to unleash all her secrets for free. Let us just enjoy this next video that will play, just to shine some more light on what we are doing, and we'll come back with a Q&A session and part two. All right, here we go.
The fishery and aquaculture industry are an important part of Nigeria's economy but remains largely untapped. It is estimated that the annual fish consumption in the country is about 3.2 million metric tons, with about 66%, 2.1 million metric tons of that need being filled by fish importation, amounting to about 1.2 billion US dollars. However, with moves by the federal government to diversify the economy in the last decade, Nigeria's agriculture subsector is growing and is second only to Egypt on the African continent. But with its growing population, there continues to be a deficit which needs to be filled.
The top farmer.
Well, that's why we are here. There continues to be a deficit. So this is a platform where we can understand why there is still a deficit. I remember some weeks ago, just before the lockdown, I traveled to the southwest, and I saw quite a number of amazing fish farms. And one thing I do know is I have seen is that there can be major loss and major gain in this business. So here's the first question we have for you. How profitable is fish production and its return on investment in Nigeria generally?
I would say that for fisheries, like every other business, if you don't have the technical know-how, you will go under. You will make great losses. It's very easy to make losses in aquaculture, really, because you are dealing with live organisms. So the slightest mistake you can lose everything in one day. So that is it. And when you know what to do, when you have those technicalities that are involved, you know how to go around it, you can make huge profits from it. Though somebody once called me and said, I heard fish farming is blood business, so it's blood money that comes from it. It's not that kind of blood money. It doesn't come that way. But you are very sure if you put everything in place, if you have the enterprise knowledge and you have good management practices put together, you'll be able to make a minimum of 30% returns on every cycle. A minimum of 30% profit return. So that is it. But if you don't know the technicalities, because some people will just say, okay, for fish, I remember them at Adebe Malay clusters. I started off that cluster some years back and all that. Farmers came in, seeing my own yield and all that. I said, oh, this business is the production is good and all that. They came in. And I, being a trainer, I kept telling them, okay, let's do this thing. I'm not just interested in me succeeding alone. Let me tell you the basic things you need to know. But there are people that always feel that they know so much about everything because they have seen a place that they rear fish and all that. It's like talking about, and that's why I like the Igbo people. They don't go into business without doing apprenticeship. That's the truth. They don't just see somebody having a shop and they go and open their shop. but they have to understudy somebody. So I'm an advocate of demonstration training, that's the truth. Because just the practical, theoretical classroom training does not give you everything you need to be a successful fish farmer and to make profits from it. So for you to be able to make profits, there are things step by step you have to see. You have to hands-on. You have to be in the field. It's not what you just read from the book. Good and fine, you read from books and you can make a headway with that anyway. But when certain challenges come, you know that no, I need some practical experience in this thing. So for you to be a successful fish farmer, many farmers just dig a pond. Okay, let me even use those that are already into fish farming. They just harvest their fish from a particular circle, go and purchase fingerlings or juvenile, pump water into that same pond, and they stock their fish and fingerlings and juvenile, and they tell you they have started their circle. What did you do to the pond? They'll say, no, I've harvested all the fish, there's nothing. But that's not it, that's bad practice. Because living organisms, they carry pathogens all around. There's what we call pond bottom mold in ponds. Any pond that you stock fish and you cultivate fish in, after a period of time, there's what we call bottom mold, which are residues from the feed, the waste from the fish itself. So by the time those things accumulate at the pond bottom, and you just take out your fish, you have harvested that particular circle, they were matured or whatsoever, you didn't have issue with them. You say, so because I didn't have issue with the last stock, let me go ahead and just impound water and stock fish in the pond. But it doesn't go that way. There are things you have to do. First of all, for that particular kind of pond, you will have to drain it. You have to drain out all the water, expose it, let it crack. Once it cracks, you can easily scrape off the pond mold from it. You can easily scrape off that pond mold and all that. But that is not obtainable in a place that is close to water body, because water will always come up. You can't allow it, it won't crack because water will keep coming up. But what you can do is just to use a bucket to scoop out the mold, take it away from the pond dike, not the surrounding, because if you keep it on the dike, rain will fall and the same waste you remove will come back into the pond. It's as good as doing nothing. So by the time you remove those molds from the surrounding, then you can now apply what we call lime. There is agric lime, there is a quick lime. But for such a pond, you use quick lime. Because some people will just go to the market and say lime is lime. When you buy agric lime is just to boost the fertility of the pond bottom, to help to release and the other nutrients that are in there to make the water productive. But it does not deal with the pathogens, does not deal with the predators in the pond. Not for ponds, for those of us that are fish farmers, we know that there are ponds, there will be some cracks. Crabs will be in there, frogs will be in there. But if you apply quick lime, those things will be eliminated. It will kill the pathogens or the predators that are in there. Then you now impound with water. But before you impound with water, as you are liming, you ensure that the pond is covered with net. I'm talking about 80 ponds now. This pond must be covered, the surface must be covered with net and well paired in such a way that nothing. We have snakes. Snakes are predators. But if you have a well-netted pond, snakes cannot come in. So by the time you make sure that the net is properly covered, you impound water. After impounding water, if you need to fertilize, you fertilize. Then after a week or two, you put in your fish. That way, you have already started on a good footing to have a good production. Because the normal issues that arises during the cycle is from the very preparation state. So if you don't do the preparation properly, you will have issues. And you start running scatter, trying to treat fish, then you start accumulating antibiotics in the system of the fish, which is not too healthy. So the best thing is that when you are going into fish farming, just ensure that you prepare your pond appropriately. You remove the water, remove the pond mold, make sure it's well netted. You lime it. After liming, you ensure that the surface is well covered. You put in your fish and you are good to go. So,
wow, that's quite a lot. Hopefully, I hope everyone has gotten something from that. At the moment, we are in between taking questions, but I know you still have a lot to say from your earlier presentation. If I may ask you, I'm sure there's something else that you have lined up for today's presentation that you haven't even executed yet. Maybe you can carry on from there.
okay. So, okay, let me just, because from the look of things, I won't really have to follow the slide, but let me just go on talking about, for today, we have talked about site selection and all that, but I will go straight now into what we call, okay, this is the steps involved in pond construction. So for farmers that are going to start afresh, if you are a fresh farmer, you have to do site selection, get a place that you want to use, check the soil type, you prepare the place, you start digging, you mark out, then you start digging the pond area. Once the pond area are dug, you do the dike, you put the nets, and you impound water in the pond. That's for fresh ponds. But those what I want to, those that want to go into concrete ponds, you don't really need so much of site selection. What you need to do is just get the area you want to use. You dig your pond area, and you ensure that the concrete you are going to use is, you consult an expert in construction so that you won't have a failed concrete tank. Many people have done concrete tanks in time past, and from the first day they impound water just to stabilize the pond walls and the bottom, the whole thing will crash. So when you are going into concrete farm, pond farming, please consult an expert. Let's not be pounding penny wise, pound foolish, because by the time you decide to just invite a quack to do that, the whole thing will go down and you would have lost all the money you used in preparing the pond. So before stocking, I've talked about pond preparation before stocking. So the next thing I want to talk about is fish production and feeding. Once you stock fish in the pond, you can move to the next slide, please. Once you've stock in fish in the pond after the preparation, then you start feeding. But first of all, to know the quantity of feed you need to do per day, you have to know the weight of the fish, total fish you are stocking. The total number that the specific pond area is going to take. Some people will just get a pond and say, okay, this pond is big enough, it can take 5,000, and they will stock 5,000 fish in there. But it's not that way. You have to measure out the pond, and you have to stock 10 juveniles or 10 fingerlings, depending on the one you are stocking, per meter square. If you overstock, you will have started growth, and your water will be polluted, and you'll start having fish mortality, dying and having infections. So the first thing you have to do is to know the size of the pond and calculate the quantity of fish that is going to take. So once that is done, then when you get the fish, this one is very important. Once you get your fish seed from the hatchery, there's what we call quarantine. Some people just get fish from the hatchery and they pour it straight inside the pond. It's not done because you don't know the condition of the seeds you are bringing, whether it's from an infested hatchery or not, you can't tell. So what you need to do is that the day you bring in your fingerlings or juvenile, depending on what you are stocking, You quarantine them, you put them in a container, a kind of a drum or basin, depending. You put them in, then you get antibiotics and what we call anti-stress. Anti-stress are vitamins combination, is already made. You can get them from any fishery store. You get anti-stress, a sachet of it. Then for the antibiotics, you can get, there's fish biotics, there are different fish antibiotics. Those two, once you put the fish in the pond, in the bowl, you are going to quarantine them. You take out 20 grams of these antibiotics and 20 grams of the anti-stress, and you mix both together and put in 100 liters of water where you put the fish into. Then the next day, the next step is for you to drain out the water, add fresh water, not fully, you reduce the water, then you add fresh water because you have to acclimatize them so that they won't have shock. Because shock is another thing that can cause disease and infections in fish. So you add more water to that particular fish stock. Then you count. Many farmers, they will go to hatchery and say, I'm buying 5,000 fingerlings of juvenile. They'll get the fingerlings and juvenile count. The hatchery operator told me it's 5,000. They go and pour in pond. By the time they are harvesting and they are recovering 500, they'll say, what happened? Yes, there can be cannibalism and all that, but to be double sure, you have to count whatsoever you are getting into your pond. So by the time you count, you weigh before you stock. You get a scale, put some quantity of water in the bowl, put it on the scale. So you can zero the weight of the water with the bowl so that you can have if the calculation will be too much work for you. You put the fingerlings or juvenile in there without, you just use a sieve to sieve them and put them inside that water on the scale. Please don't use dry bowl because your fish will be stressed and they will end up dying when you put them in the pond. So you put the water in a bowl, zero the weight of the water and bowl, then you put your fingerlings or juvenile in it, record the weight of that particular stock you want to put. You have already counted. So by the time you divide the total number with the overall weight, you'll be able to get the average weight of the fish. And fish, you feed them by their body weight. So once you know the biomass and the weight, that will help you to know the exact quantity of feed you will feed to each of those ponds if you have several of them. And if it's just one pond, by the time you calculate it, you now calculate 5% of that body weight. That's what you will have to feed to the fish. That portion you can divide it into two, because for fingerlings and juvenile, it's better to feed them in the morning and in the evenings. You choose a particular time in the morning, maybe like 8 a.m. in the morning. You feed a portion of it. You feed a portion of it in the morning. In the evening, you feed the other portion. So that's what you will do for the fish, and you will be able to know the quantity and all. And after about 2 weeks, you just increase the quantity a bit, maybe depending on if it's like 1,000 fish and we're feeding them like 20 grams at a start, you can increase it to 25 grams after 2 weeks. So you just keep doing that. So you just keep doing that. Then when it's 6 weeks of stocking your fish, there's what we call fish stock sorting. Some people put fish into ponds and they leave that fish in the pond for the whole 6 months or 3 months or 4 months they want to raise the fish. Fish don't, even animals, humans, nothing grow equally. Some will grow faster, others will grow at their own pace. So the best thing to do is that after 6 weeks of stocking your fish, you will have to now do what we call sorting. You drain out the water, you bring out all those fish in the pond with mesh size nets, because they are still tiny. You can't use big harvesting nets. You use mesh size nets, you harvest them, then you put them in a bowl of water, then you count with sieve You don't count outside like that so that they won't be stressed. As you are taking them receive out of water, you are counting into another bowl of water. So, and you are sorting them into different sizes. By merely looking at them, you put fish that are of you won't get equal size anyway. So those that are having this almost the same range of size, you put them in a bowl. The smaller ones, you put them, they can be 3 categories, they can be 2 categories. So depending on the disparity. So, but if what you have is just 2 ponds to use for this, you sort them from that 1 pond. You take the bigger ones, put in the pond, the smaller ones put in another pond. So that way you start feeding, by the time you do this, you record, take the weight of the fish again. Even if it's not the total now. But when you are sorting, you have to know the total number. So from that particular bowl you have sorted, you know the number. Then you can just take a sample out and weigh. So with that, you'll be able to calculate what those particular group set of fish will be eating. Same with the other category. So you keep feeding them. Sorry, I can't move the screen. So you keep feeding them in the different ponds. So once that is done, then there are daily practices that you have to do. As a fish farmer, when you get to your pond, first thing in the morning is not to start feeding. You do what we call observation. You walk around your ponds and check those nets. Are there openings? Are there openings? How are the fish behaving? Are there bubbles on top of the pond? If there are bubbles, that's an indication that there is a oxygen depletion in the pond. So you will have to check the water level, reduce it and top it up. If you are having bubbles, that means there's already signs of a problem in the pond. So for that kind of pond, you will have to add in more water before you feed. You let the fish acclimatize, then you feed them. So those practices are things you have to do on a daily basis. Then for temperature, you have to check your temperature regularly. Okay, let me just list this. I cannot really share the screen because it's not moving here right now. So the things to check, parameters to check in your pond is, one is your water, whether there are bubbles. That's check for the oxygen level, whether it's depleted or not. Then the second one is your pH. You take a sample of your water from the pond with a bowl or a bucket. Then there's what we call pH meter, or there's a test kit for it, a reagent that you can use to check your pH. So if you have reagents or you have a pH meter, both of them can do same work. You check the pH. If the pH of your water is below 6.8, 6.7, that means your water is okay. For pH 7 is neutral. Anything below 7 is tending towards acidity. Anything above 7, 8 to 14 is alkalinity. So for fish to do well, your ponds will have to be around between that 6.5 to 8.9 in the reading. So that one is the optimal range for your pH for fish production, especially catfish production. So once you do that, that's a practice you have to carry out on a daily basis, and you take down your recordings of all these things. Because another problem farmers or business people have is that they don't have records. So anything you are doing in your farm, you have to have records for it. You record the quantity of feed you are feeding. You need to have a notebook. You record it there. Your dissolved oxygen reading, that you cannot easily tell if you don't have the apparatus. But the mere observation is just to check out for bubbles in your pond area. If there are bubbles, that means the oxygen level is going down. You just reduce water and add. Then for the pH, if the pH is not okay, you have to look for how to reduce water or increase the, reduce the water, then add fresh water to freshen up the water. Then for turbidity is the level of transparency of your pond water. For those that are into petty ponds, by the time your water is too green, is good, is productive. But if it's too green, becoming dark green, like a bitter leaf kind of tending towards bitter leaf green, then the turbidity might be too much. So you have to check. There is a way, we use Sekai disc for checking turbidity, but you can as well use your hand to check the turbidity of your pond. If you have painted fingers, if you are a lady, and you put your fingers in, the level you cannot see is, that means is too, the turbidity is too much. So you can use your finger to easily check, or you use a painted wood. You paint it with sharp color red. Any level you can see, you keep adjusting. The level you can see the red, that's where you mark and measure to know the length of the wood. With that, you can determine your turbidity of the pond. But the most crucial one is that pH level, the dissolved oxygen level of your pond. So once you have done those sorting and you are feeding on a daily basis, your fish will be doing well and everything will be going appropriately. But if peradventure the pond water is too transparent, you can add agric lime to it, even when there is fish already in the pond. You can add agric lime and it will not harm the fish. That one will just increase the turbidity of your fish a bit. So that's for that. Sorry, I cannot share my screen. I don't know what has happened. It's like I don't have control over sharing of the screen anymore.
Okay, so but
Hello,
I can hear you. Please, you can carry on. We're enjoying the presentation.
okay. Please, can I get control over so that I can just, okay, all right. Okay, this is a picture of sorting out of fingerlings. You can see how it's being done. You spread it on the table. There's a bowl of water underneath, and you just sort out the fingerlings. You count and you sort. This particular person is doing sorting at 6 weeks, putting back the fish. You see that you don't pour the fish directly into the pond. With the water in the fish, you lower the bowl inside the pond water, and you allow water from the pond to come in. Once water comes in, the fish on their own swim out of the bowl without stress. So that's how that is being done. Then I've talked about feeding. Then yes, during cold seasons, please, you regulate the quantity of feed you feed to your fish. If they were taking a bag of feed before, but during cold season, you can halve it so that you will not have issues with them having leftover in the pond or having infection. So that's it for feeding and sorting. Then there is what we call maintaining an improved pond environment. That is, you have to continually check the environment of the fish, that your water level is not too low, because the optimal level for water is between 1 meter to 1.5 meters. So if your water is less than 1 meter, your fish will have issues, especially in hot seasons. They will have issues with temperature fluctuation, and they will start having infections and all that. So you must ensure that your water level is never too shallow, not less than 1 meter deep, and can be a maximum of 1.5 meters. Then I've talked about sampling for growth. Sampling for growth, I talked about 6 weeks. That is the one you do sorting and you take the weight of the fish. Then when the fish is 3 months old, especially if you are taking the fish to table size level, when the fish is 3 months old, you take a sample. You already know the quantity of fish in your pond. And mind you, please, when you have mortality, a number of farmers, when they have mortality in their fish pond, they don't remove the fish. Sorry, excuse me. They don't remove the dead fish. They leave it in the pond and say the fish, other fish will eat the fish. It's not a good practice, because if that fish died as a result of infection, the other fish in the pond will be infected. They will be infected. So the best thing is that no matter what's the cause of fish mortality in your pond, remove that dead fish. That's why we make use of hand nets. You have hand nets, you raise the nets, even if it's concrete pond or anywhere, you use hand nets to remove the fish that died. Then you record that the mortality against that day. So that at the end of your fish culture, you'll be able to tell, okay, I put in 1,000 fish in this pond. When I sorted, I got 990 pieces or 900 pieces, depending on what you put in there. Then at harvest, you'll be able to tell, okay, 980 I stock minus what died. So you have an expected number of fish that you should be looking out for during harvest. Then for fish sampling, once you take out a sample of the population, that is randomly, you use nets to take out from the fish pond. You count the number of fish that you brought out, then you weigh. By the time you weigh the number of fish, you record the weight and you divide that number, the total weight, by the total number of fish you brought out. That will give you the average weight of the fish in the pond. So once you have the average weight of the fish in the pond, you do the 5% feed application, and you know the exact quantity of feed that you'll be giving. Because some people just keep feeding. This fish is big. They will pour the feed in the pond and all that. Sometimes you're underfeed, but with sampling for growth, sampling the population you have already done at 6 months, doing it at 3 months will give you a fair judgment on what to be feeding the fish, so that you will not end up underfeeding or overfeeding them. Then once that is done, when it comes to the time of harvesting, you carry out your market survey. For some farmers, when they want to sell, they just invite those fish smugglers that are buying fish, and they drain their pond and say, come and buy fish. By the time the people come to the pond, they start pricing and arguing about price and everything. But that's not the best way to do. Make sure you settle your price, and you have, if you call people from, for fish sellers, they have different points they sell. Invite people from different points. Don't invite from one point, because by the time you invite people from one point, they can gang up and decide to determine the price you will sell. And because you don't have alternative at that point in time, and you have already flushed out your water, you will be forced to sell out your fish. And that's one major problem unexperienced fish farmers have when it's time to sell fish. They just pump out their water. By the time they start, they'll say, no, this fish is not big enough. And when it's time for harvesting, please always sort out your fish, because these people use size. They'll say 1 kg and above is this. They have mini, semi, they have all sorts of names for fish, which is not appropriate anyway, but we are yet to be able to deal with that. So for you as a fish farmer, if you are selling your fish and you know that the sizes are of different sizes, make sure you sort them relatively. If you have 1 kg and above, put them in a separate tank. If you have less than 1 kg, what they call semi, all those 700 grams and all that, 900 grams, put them separately. So because those women, what they end up doing is that they know that you are judging, they will say 25 for 25 kg. By the time they miss 700 grams with 1 kg and above, you will have 29, and they will tell you this one is not big fish. They will want to pay you semi price. But for you to be able to do it up well, for them not to cheat you, once you sort out, by the time they count 25, they will have 1 kg. It can be less, so it's their choice. They can pick 24 cases for 25 kg. But the smaller ones always ensure that they are sorted out, except if your market is already strong, if you have a solid market, you can do without sorting them into different points, and you'll be able to stand your ground and sell your fish. I think that's for harvesting. This is pictures of when I was selling some of my stock then at Ategbemele, IT students and all that. And always ensure you have your scale, please. Some farmers don't have scale. They ask those that want to buy to bring their scale, and some of their scales are already adjusted. So you will end up cheating yourself if you don't have your own scale and you use their scale. If they have worked on their scale and a fish that is supposed to weigh 1.2 kg or 1.5 kg start weighing 1 kg, is what they see on the scale, they will pay you and you will be at a loss. So it's always better you have your materials, if possible, have your nets. Have your nets, it's not if possible, because in time past we have had issues where people come from far places. I remember then in those states, they had people come from, they say they are coming from Ibadan, they are coming from Ogbomosho and all that. They bring their scale and their nets. By the time they enter your ponds, though it sounds like a myth, but many farmers have lost money through this avenue. They come with their net and their scale. By the time they drag your pond and they put a bowl of fish, most times they don't use bowls, they use their own drums. A drum that is supposed to weigh 150 kg will be weighing 50 kg. According to those that have experienced it, they say they have been jazzed. So please, to avoid being jazzed, make sure you use your tools, equipment. I don't allow people enter my ponds. I don't allow them use their nets. I use my nets to drag. I use my scale and my bowls. After weighing with my bowl and scale, I know that the jazz can never come near my own bowls and scale. So by the time you pour in your bowl, you can be jazzed there, but all the same is what I see in my scale that you pay for. It's always better to have your tools for harvesting. So over to you, Manny.
Well done, Mrs. Benedita. Thank you so much for this. This session has been very, very insightful, very, very detailed. It just brings to me the understanding that fish generally, is as a living thing. You need to pay attention to it at many, many stages. So, and this might be the reason why maybe many Nigerians don't pay this much attention. Because even me, I'm listening to everything you're saying. There's so much detail involved from when they are little as fingerlings to when they become, so I think this is the best session I've had in a long time, because it just tells you that you need to be some kind of scientist, you have a scientific approach when you are raising fish. Am I right?
Yes.
Because your eyes have to be there to see the water level, the measurement of the water and the fish together. Not all fish grow at the same pace. The alkaline nature or the acidity of the water and the residue from the fish, the water, the residues that goes to the bottom of the water has to be removed and cleaned. There's so many things that are happening, and if the fish dies, they will say it's witchcraft, or they will say it is this and that. I think it's detail. So please, everyone online, thank you very much for hanging on with us. We do this every Friday, Top Farmer Speaks. We have Mrs. Benedita Peter Ogeoke, who has given us a rundown of the processes involved in starting a fish pond or fish farm. Please, if you have a question, this is the best time to ask the questions. So I implore you to send your messages on the platform, or just indicate so we can open your channel. You can ask her a question live, or naturally, if you want to ask her this question, you will go and book. You will go and make phone call or send email. Now you have access to her free live. So please, all interested farmers on the platform, send us your questions, as we have started a question and answer session now. There's a lot of questions we have to ask you. Please, Miss Madam, let me ask you, which is the most profitable, in your opinion? Which is the most profitable? Is it the juvenile, the fingerlings, smoke size? Which is the most profitable?
Okay, talking about profitability, well, depending on your markets. Because, okay, I will take it two ways. Is it to produce fingerlings or to produce juvenile? Those are hatchery operators.
I think we're losing some contact with you there. Are you still there, madam?
Hatchery and juvenile. So most hatchery prefer to sell juveniles. I don't buy juveniles. I even prefer to buy what they call fries because that way, but if you don't have the expertise for that, it's better you go for fingerlings or juvenile, depending on what you have on ground. But all the same, I will still say that if you have good water quality in your pond, you have enough water, and you have a bit of knowledge about what it entails to grow fish. If you go for fingerlings, that way, if it's a good stock, you will be able to have fish that you can sort into different sizes. And for those of us that go into broodstock production, that's the best fish you can use. Because when you buy a juvenile, the hatchery operator will tell you this juvenile is 12 weeks, whereas the juvenile is already 20 weeks or even almost 3 months. They are runs. But with fingerlings, you'll be able to get fish that will be able to grow, and you can tell from that initial stage. If they are not good seeds, you can easily tell, and you can decide to discard them or just pack them in a pond to do maybe smoke them out if you have people that buy those sizes and all that. But generally speaking, if you stock fingerlings and you are able to follow those practices, that is, you have already you quarantined them, you sorted them out when they are 6 weeks, and you are able to sort them into different sizes. Because it's this area of sorting that makes farmers to lose a lot of money during production. Because you now have a fish, you can have the same stock, and when you brought them in, another thing, please let me quickly say, once you are buying your fingerlings, don't allow them to add fingerlings that are almost juvenile with smaller sizes. It's better you let go of those few bigger ones than to stock everything in the pond. Because by the time you stock everything in the pond, those bigger ones will eat up the smaller ones, and your population of fish will go down. So if you stock 1,000 fish and you decide to leave fish that are of varied sizes that initial time, by the time you are sorting at 6 weeks, you might discover that bulk of the fish is gone and you are just having maybe like 800 if you are lucky. But if the sizes are a bit uniform, remove those extreme large ones. By 6 weeks and you do your sorting again, the extra large one, put them in a separate pond. Those are the ones that they call shooters or jumpers. Those ones, you can easily sort them out and use them if you are going to for broodstock production. Those particular sets, you can easily put them in a pond and grow them for broodstock, because those ones are more viable.
Okay. So
they are more viable.
Yeah, I have a question here for you. This somebody's asking you. It says, why are people importing frozen fish, while fish growers are complaining of low patronage? Why are people importing frozen fish?
I think the major problem we have, yes, we'll say government, in every business, in every sphere, whatsoever your circle might be, there is always a problem of government policy and here and there. But the biggest problem we have is this knowledge gap. Most farmers don't have the technicality to handle fish. So, and generally speaking, some people will say, okay, a kilo of fish, if you compare a kilo of catfish in the market, so a kilo of Titus in the market, Titus is more expensive than catfish. And yet farmers are complaining because the patronage for catfish is lower than what the day-to-day man buy in the market. People don't go to market to buy catfish. That awareness is not there. They just believe that catfish is a big man's fish. That for you to buy catfish, you have to be somebody that is worthy and or well-to-do. Some people use it as they buy catfish when they want to do any kind of event, entertain themselves or special ceremonies. But when you compare the price of ice fish in the market with catfish is cheaper. But if the patronage, I think if it's because of, it's just like the poultry sector. Government said they have banned the importation of frozen poultry products and all that. With that, more people were able to go into poultry production, and you have more birds in the market. And relatively, the price will come down a bit. And you know, the truth is that turnover matters a lot. If you have high patronage, the profit margin will not be of so much concern to the farmer if the volume is there. So it's because the volume, the average man does not go to market to buy catfish. Because that mentality, that awareness is not there. They still have this thing in their head that catfishes are more expensive. But in the real fact is that catfish is not more expensive than frozen foods. The frozen fish is more expensive. In the market, they sell 1 kg for 1,500, and people are buying it. So if government can, in the area of policy, first of all, empower fish farmers, because the major challenge with produce is the amount of money you use in feeding. 70% of your overhead goes into feeding, which is high, is huge. So if there is huge. So except for those that know how to put in the different mix of management practice, they are able to at least reduce that cost of feeding to have optimal production. Okay. So that's why we cannot compromise having a good seed and having a favorable environment combined with those technicalities in raising fish. So when those ones are in place, you are sure of making high profits. And with that, farmers are being encouraged to do more and do more of the production. So that is the major thing is the government. If the government decides to ban importation of frozen fish, the production will increase. More people will go into it. People will expand their farms, and with that, there will be more fish in the market.
Okay, we have a question from Olayinka, who says, as an intending fish farmer, which of the fish value chains gives the highest profit? So this person wants to know which value chain gives the highest profit. Is it whether the supply? I don't know. You know the value chains. Which one gives most profit?
For this, the answer is relative. You know, there are different actors in the value chain, from the feed inputs. Those ones are part of the value chain. This includes suppliers are there. Transportation is part of the value chain. Those that go into transportation, those that go into hatchery and the hatchery production, that's fingerling and juvenile production, is part of the value chain. Processing is another area. Then distribution, there are people that they don't raise fish. All they do is that they go and buy from farmers and they go and distribute. I think in quotes right now, those middlemen seems to be the one making more of the profits at the moment, because they buy from farmers and their own selling price. Baba is laughing. I can see one of my Adepe Mele Baba on the screen is laughing. Yes, because he knows what I'm talking about. Those people, they are something else. They are the ones that eat bulk of the money, because they go and supply to hotels. Those are the people that the normal day-to-day person in the street go to buy. A fish that they buy in the market from you as a farmer at 1,000 naira, that they'll be haggling and say it's 900, 800 they want to pay. They'll go and sell it 1,000 plus. And they don't use scale to weigh. That's the funniest thing. They just weigh by size. And fish can be very deceptive. There are fish that can be long and big, looking big, but they are bloated. They are not weight. Those people don't sell by weight, but they sell by size. So those are the people for now tend to make bulk of the profit. But if you are somebody that enjoy seeing live things grow, because apart from the money, it's very fulfilling. That's the truth. Aquaculture is the baby that lives in me. I enjoy seeing my fish live anywhere I go to, and I see fish just feeding itself. It refreshes your system, really. So apart from that recreational part, if you know the exact practices and you follow the step, you need to do training. It's not this online talk, because with this, you have to do a kind of demonstration, be in the field to see the process and all that.
All right.
But
all right, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
yeah, go ahead.
The hatchery production is very good because it's a short-term period of time. You do your hatching within, if you are going to sell as fingerlings, between 6 and 8 weeks, you would have sold off all the batches. Because what they do is that by 6 weeks, they sort out. If you have good production, by 6 weeks, you can sell off your first batch, 7 weeks, second batch, and the 8th week, your third batch. So that is if you understand the technicality and all that.
So,
but if you are going for grow outs, outs.
Okay.
And you have the technicality, you have good feed and good stock. By 4 months, you'll be able to raise. So it's the timing, but please, it's the
we are experiencing some network issues here, but hopefully we will get back to you. Please ask your questions to Mrs. Benedita, our guest for today's show. You can also send a message, and also you can send an email to info@thetopfarmerspeaks, info@thetopfarmer, or just follow Top Farmer on YouTube, and you will know how to reach out to us here on the platform. So I'm looking out for more questions. We have a question, but the network is, maybe we can get back to her in a few seconds. Somebody's asking a question about, are we still there? Hello, madam, are you there? Hello, madam. Are you still there? I'm guessing she's still there trying to log in, maybe. All right. Thank you, everyone. Please, if you have a question, you can always ask the question. This is a knowledge sharing platform. It's called The Top Farmer Speaks. Okay, welcome back. Yes, you can unmute your microphone. Yeah, I have some questions for you here. 2 questions. Okay. Somebody says, based on what you have been saying, which is what would you advise a young fish farmer to go into first? Would you advise them to go into the natural pond or the artificial pond? What is the cost effectiveness when you're comparing the natural pond or the artificial pond? I think that's what he's asking.
Okay. I love earthy ponds because it makes the work easier for somebody. But if you don't have that facility, because for you to do earthy ponds, you need large expanse of land. That's the first thing. So if you don't have that large expanse of land, you can go into concrete ponds farming or tarpaulin farming, but you must have lots of water.
Can you give an estimate, like, to the figures? Somebody is maybe tuning in from somewhere, doesn't know the cost differences, the earthing or the concrete. Is there a way you can give like an estimate?
Okay, for earthy ponds will be cheaper on the long run, because it's just if you have a land already and you are just to dig, an average pond that can take 1,000 fish, you will need more than 50,000 to dig it up. If you have to dig, you will dig with about 50 to 70,000. That one will take between 1,000 to 1,500 to maturity. But if you don't have land, then you will have to make if it's a rented facility, please don't go and dig ponds, so that what happened to us at Adebemile will not happen to you. Because if you end up investing your money in another man's property, because Adebemile was a government leased property. After digging all the ponds and spending millions, the government came back and said they want to take back their property without compensation. Please, if you are taking anybody's property, don't invest in the land. Use tarpaulin. That when they say go, pack your tarpaulin and go somewhere else. That is the truth. Except you have solid agreements on ground that you will use it for a period of years before you leave. That is the truth. Because if you okay, so for tarpaulin that can take 500, because tarpaulin is better when they are not too large, so that you can easily manage them. Tarpaulin that can take an average of 500 to maturity, you can get it for around, it used to be around 50,000, 70,000, but with 100,000, you can get that. You can get tarpaulin that can take fish to maturity for 500. But for concrete, it's expensive because you have to construct. You have to buy with the recent cement price and I cannot really estimate for concrete right now, because I don't know the exact pricing, but it will be high because you have to invest in the concrete. For the estimate of concrete ponds, please contact a construction engineer, an engineer that can give you the exact quoting, because they have to fill them with concrete for them to be able to stand the water pressure and expansion. So then you can use plastic tanks. Plastic tanks that can take fish of like, initially that can take 500, but when they are growing, you cannot take more than 200 fish.
I think
that one you can get it for like
I have to interrupt you because it appears that the session is coming to an end in the next few seconds or thereabouts. But with your permission, I think we deserve another session. I think this program deserves another session. We are going to do some extra promotion, and hopefully we should come back next week with a continuation of this. It's getting very interesting, and I'm very excited about this business angle we're looking at. So I want to thank you for holding it down for us for the last 90 minutes. Our guest for today's show, Mrs. Benedicta Peter Ogeke. Thank you very much. You've been an amazing host. I mean, an amazing guest. And I can see that, sir, you were trying to say something, Mr. Tolu from Akure. But don't worry, I'm sure you have a lot to say as well. We will have a session in the near future. This is Top Farmer Speaks. Please send us your questions. Remember, you can also go to Top Farmer Speaks on YouTube. Follow at the Top Farmer to know how you can reach out to us if you have a problem with your fish farm. You want any of our guests to serve you as consultants to help your business. We can connect you with them. People like Mrs. Benedicta can be consulted. She accepts pounds and dollars, is where she is now. So please, we will contact you. We will link you up. All right. I really appreciate you all for holding it down. A big shout out to everybody who's on the platform today. In spite of your busy schedule, you still made our time to come out here. Thank you to Bello Francis, Ebenezer. Thank you to Kaka. Thank you to everyone who has been on the platform today. Thank you to Abubakar. Also, thank you to Brother Donald. Thank you all for watching today's episode of the program. We apologize for the slight glitches that we've had. We will work on a better way to make sure that it is seamless. My name is Manny Essien. I am your host for Top Farmer. I'll see you again in a few minutes. I mean, in a few days' time. Please enjoy this next video clip, and thank you very much for watching.
Have you ever wished for the opportunity to fully understand the agricultural and the agribusiness sector of the economy?
This year is a great year to grow cassava, selling it for as high as 35,000 naira per ton.
You've heard about the monies that can be made from the sector, but you don't know where to start. Good morning. Welcome to the Top Farmer. This is the rural settlement somewhere in Oyo State. Welcome to Osplat and Kubot Farms, Ejare, Ogun State. Now here we are, Sabo Market, right in the heart of Oyo Town.
You can see there is lack of nutrients.
You don't have a farm and you don't have chickens. What do you have? You have the money.
Yes.
The mechanical peeler is the one spinning, right?
Exactly.
It spins the cassava and takes out some of the stuff from it.
You lost 4 million naira in one day.
Recover the money again.
What is the capacity?
We have about 60,000 birds.
60,000 birds.
The Newcastle disease that is mentioned is a disease that is endemic in Nigeria.
If there's any insect, the chemical will eat the insect and the insect will die.
That's the major hazard you face.
Funny enough, if anything goes into the pond, the fishes will eat it.
Let's just stay out of the water for now.